The surgical strike set a precedent. The government had made its stand clear. India will not tolerate those who export terror. There are calls for another such strike now, but the strategy and sentiment must be kept separate. The government is faced with a tough choice. Should it cut diplomatic ties with Pakistan? Can it launch a surgical strike before the election? Can it be seen to be not doing anything in an election season? Those are the questions that remain. Meanwhile, some breaking developments coming in. The government of India has condemned in the strongest possible terms the cowardly terrorist attack in Pulwama today. In a strongly worded statement, the government has called it a heinous and despicable act by Pakistan-based JeM, a terrorist organization proscribed by the United Nations and other countries. The government in India has attacked Pakistan for giving full freedom to the terror group led by the international terrorist Masood Azhar to operate and expand his terror infrastructure in territories in Pakistan and to carry out attacks in India with impunity. India has vowed to fight against the menace of terrorism and has demanded that Pakistan should stop supporting terrorists and terror groups operating from its territory and dismantle the infrastructure operated by terrorist outfits to launch attacks in other countries. India has also, in that strongly worded statement, appealed to all members of the international community to support the proposal to list terrorists, including the JeM chief Masood Azhar, as a designated global terrorist in the UN Security Council and to ban terrorist organizations operating from territories controlled by Pakistan. That's a comprehensive statement, a strongly worded one coming in from the Indian government. Let's get in further details now from our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal. Siddhant, what more do we know at this point? Of course, the Indian government has in the past as well lashed out at the international community as well, specifically China, for its failure when it comes to wielding strong support to ban Masood Azhar and to designate him as a global terrorist.
Well, Molly, today will be a long night for diplomats and, of course, people in Jammu and Kashmir, the security forces. We know that over 40 lives have been lost in this terrible terror attack. And India has just issued a very long statement. And this statement goes on to Beijing and to Islamabad. Well, without taking China's name, India said that all members of the international community should support the proposal to list JeM chief Masood Azhar as a designated terrorist under the 1267 UN committee. Well, what is the 1267 UN committee? Under this committee, every person who is listed is an international terrorist. India was trying to do just that for a pretty long time. India was backed by US, by UK, by France, but only one country was blocking. That was China. China repeatedly blocked the entire motion which India and a lot of Western friends tried to do. And that is why today we are seeing that terror attack, which of course we know has handlers in Pakistan, and Pakistan clearly not changing its track when it comes to the issue of terrorism, supporting the terrorist infrastructure on its territory. And that is not only destabilizing India, it's also destabilizing Afghanistan. This is a worry which Kabul and New Delhi have been voicing for a pretty long time, but it seemed that the world was turning deaf, and it is still turning deaf despite the vocal comments by New Delhi. Nothing has happened. It has been 10 years since 2611 has happened, but the mastermind of 2611 roams freely on the streets of Lahore. Only earlier this month in February, on February 5th, we saw there was this big rally in Lahore. India, of course, sent the note verbal also, but nothing happened. Pakistan is not changing its track. And because of that, we have seen this terrible terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir.
Right, stay with me, Siddhant. Let's also take a look once again at that strongly worded statement that's been put out by the Indian government on the Pulwama terror attack. It's a comprehensive one, lashing out at Pakistan in multiple words for its failure to contain terrorism. India condemning in the strongest possible terms the cowardly terrorist attack in Pulwama today, and also calling it a heinous and despicable act by the Pakistan-based JeM. It has also attacked Pakistan for giving full freedom to the terror group led by the international terrorist Masood Azhar to operate and expand his terror infrastructure. India has vowed to fight against the menace of terrorism. Siddhant, as I was earlier mentioning, that statement also touches upon the failure of the international community. We know for a fact that China has failed to act when it comes to helping India ban Masood Azhar and designated as a global terrorist.
And that is primarily because Pakistan and China are all very friend, and China is willing to look away from the Pakistani activities because it's not harming China. But of course, China has a lot of economic interest in Pakistan itself. But it seems now is the time that India will be testing that Wuhan spirit, which was launched by Indian Prime Minister with that informal summit last year in Wuhan. And we saw how both the leaders, the Chinese president and the Indian Prime Minister, met 4 times. There will be, of course, the Russia, India, China foreign ministers meeting just few days from now in Beijing, where the Indian External Affairs Minister will be present. Of course, Russia has been backing India when it comes to the issue of terrorism. We saw the immediate statement by the Russian embassy after the terror attack, but China is silent, and China's silence will be something that India is taking not only note of, but India will be vocal about it, about non-action being taken by China when it comes to designation of a person who is roaming freely in Pakistan. We all know that Pakistan is a nuisance in the region, but China, a country which is the second largest economy on earth, and of course a responsible rising power, of course there will be pressure from New Delhi now, given the fact that Wuhan spirit is something that the Indian Prime Minister had considerably invested, and now it's time to China to prove that it seriously believes in good relationship with India, and especially when it comes to terrorism, that it has to come hard on Pakistan, because Pakistan, of course, will be becoming liability for China in near future if China doesn't act on Pakistan, especially the state sponsorship of terrorism that is destabilizing the entire region. We saw how after the attacks, the Pathankot attack and of course the Uri attack, India was very vocal about terrorism emanating from Pakistan. Even the SAARC summit was cancelled by not only India but by Bangladesh, by Sri Lanka, by Nepal and Bhutan also.
Right.
The region spoke in one voice, and it's again we saw the region is speaking in one voice. We have seen tweets and comments by various ministries, the foreign ministries, and of course the presidents in the region. But now it's a time to China to prove itself that it's really serious when it comes to the issue of terrorism.
Indeed. Stay with me, Siddhant. Let's also get in a quick reaction from our correspondent Ishan Vani, who's been getting us the very latest on that terror attack. He's been tracking the latest developments in Srinagar. Ishan, it's the worst attack in the state in over 2 decades. And of course, one of the strongest statements that we've seen coming in from the Indian government lashing out at Pakistan. If I can begin by asking you for the latest in terms of what the authorities are telling you.
Well, the entire area is still sealed. There are additional troops deployed on the scene because the NIA team will be visiting the Kashmir tomorrow for the forensic details. At the same time, it's snowing and the forces are trying to, keep the material and evidence clean so that it could be examined by the team which will arrive here tomorrow. It has been snowing since past half an hour, and that's why there is a team which is looking for these substances and are, really taking care of that substance so that it does not get diluted because of the snowfall that's happening in Kashmir Valley. At the same time, security forces are assessing that situation, that how did it arise that at least 2,500 CRPF personnel were part of a single battalion, and they were moving from this highway. Remember, this highway has been time and time again coming under attack. So have the SOPs been, diluted for this particular purpose? Remember, Srinagar Jammu National Highway was shut for continuous 5 days. Maybe that's why 2,500 troops were, part of that particular convoy which was on way to Srinagar from Jammu. But the placement also, remember, this is something which is unusual in the Kashmir Valley. A car getting rammed into a bus of CRPF personnel. It last happened in 2004 when a camp was attacked using a car. But since then, it hasn't been happening. So it's a surprise element for the security forces as well. But remember, the IP note clearly mentions that this sort of attack may be on cards by the JeM, which has been trying to revive itself in the Kashmir Valley since a long time. we have seen that Hizbul Mujahideen and Lashkar-e-Taiba have been taking the front step, but at the same time, now the Jaish-e-Mohammed has announced its entry into Kashmir again by launching this particular suicide attack. Jaish-e-Mohammed is known for carrying out such deadly attacks. They carried out one in Pulwama in a CRPF camp in which several CRPF Jawans lost their lives. So now it will be all dependent on the forensic report and evidences that will be collected tomorrow from the spot in the South Kashmir. But security forces are still on their toes. There has been a deployment and alert sounded across Kashmir Valley after this particular attack.
Right, Ishan will of course keep coming back to you for further updates on that story. Thanks very much indeed for getting us up to speed with what the authorities are telling you. The worst terror attack in the state in over 2 decades. A strongly worded statement coming in from the Indian government lashing out at Pakistan. A strong statement, a stern warning coming in for Pakistan to contain terrorism emanating from its soil. Remember, Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed terror outfit has claimed responsibility for the attack that took place in Pulwama today, leaving 40 CRPF personnel in India killed.